This is Jim Nehus, and you're listening to the Low Pressure Podcast.
You're listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers. Presented by CMH Heli Skiing and Fat Tire Amber Ale.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's Mark Warner, and you're listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers. We got a good one today for you skiers. We've got a guy named James Nehus. Who is he? He's the gentleman that has hand-painted virtually every single trail map in North America. By hand. Like, every single tree. Like, really, really impressive, really amazing stuff. Every ski resort you've been to, there's a trail map. There's a good chance that James has painted it. And he is on the podcast today to talk about his career. He's got over 255 maps that he's drawn, 175 ski resorts, and he has a book where he's collected his entire life's work, and you can get it all in one place, and you can put it right on your coffee table. It's called The Man Behind the Maps. Pretty good name. So he is here to talk about that today. He's with his business partner, Todd Bennett, who actually was a big fan and approached him with the idea for the book. So we kind of talk about the whole process within that, which is really exciting. And for you lucky Low Pressure Podcast listeners, we're going to give away one of these really awesome Man Behind the Maps books. So what you'll need to do is go to our Instagram page in the link, or to the Low Pressure Podcast website, the contest page, and there will be a place for you to sign up to win one of these awesome books. And you better believe I'm getting one of those books as well. I can't wait to get it. When I do, I'm going to crack myself open a nice frosty ice cold Fat Tire Amber Ale and enjoy that while I flip through the pages of every single ski resort in North America. I'm really excited about this as well. So thanks to James, and thanks to Fat Tire for creating a lovely, refreshing accompaniment. You should go get some for yourself as well. It's also tailgate season, people, so maybe get some beer, put them in the back seat of your car, and share them with your friends after an amazing day spring skiing at your local resort that you were able to find your direction because of James and his excellent maps. Also, I want to say thanks to CMH for being a great sponsor on the show. And they are just getting ramped up and showing people what they've got going on for their summer product. Yes, CMH heli and skiing, but they also have heli hiking. I went a couple years ago, and it was absolutely fantastic. If you listen to today's CMH Heli Huddle, you will learn about some of their specialty programs and their workshops, which they're offering this upcoming summer season, which include painting, photography, some biomimicry, an alpine trail running, and it involves all of the amenities that you would expect from the glorious lodges in the mountains that you would get from heli skiing. But in this time, it's the summer. So go check that out, cmhheli.com. The summer product is pretty awesome. So thank you for everybody listening. I hope you've already signed up to go win that book. And here's a great conversation with James and his partner, Todd. Enjoy. Gentlemen, welcome to the Low Pressure Podcast. It's an honor to have you on. Welcome.
Yeah, good to be here, Mark.
Well, thank you for having me.
So I'm talking with Jim Nehus and Todd Bennett. Todd, you are, well, Jim, first of all, you are the gentleman who basically shows people where to go, for lack of a better explanation. Would you like to give a little introduction for yourself?
I've been real happy to be able to do that over the years. It's been 35 years that I've been doing this. So,
what were you doing? What were you doing before you were drawing ski maps?
Well, I had a partnership in an ad agency for 7 years, and then I I dissolved that and moved to Denver. And in Denver, while I was struggling to find work as a freelancer, hopefully I was, I was trying to pick up a little paste up work and some drawing here and there, and I finally decided to look up Bill Brown and knew that he did trail maps, and that's what I really had a passion for, was painting scenery. And I thought, well, perhaps he would have an overload, and I could help him out.
So who was that? What was his name?
Bill Brown, my predecessor.
Bill Brown. So I was talking to a friend today, and he mentioned his name. So I said, I'm doing this podcast episode with Jim. He basically painted every ski resort that you've seen, and he goes, "Oh, is his name Bill? Right? Bill Brown?"
That's correct. And before him was Hal Sheldon. And Hal was the fellow that really got the traditional trail map image started. Back in the 60s. So Bill kind of took over from him, and then I was fortunate enough to take over after Bill.
Was there any kind of was it like a nice transition where it was like master and apprentice, and like Jedi Padawan, ninja master, grasshopper? Was it that sort of a transition?
No, it was really very simple and straightforward. I mean, I just came in and he reviewed my portfolio, and we discussed art and our techniques, and he turned over a job to me that he had a lot of time on. And he said, well, if this doesn't work out, well, I'll still have enough time to paint this scene. And he sent it home with me, and I spent about 30 days on it. And it's just a little inset for a winter park. And I brought it back, and he really liked it. And, I did everything that I could to mimic Bill's techniques. And so when it was taken up to the client, while Bill presented it, I hadn't signed it yet on purpose, and Bill showed it to them, and they thought it was his work, and Bill brought it back, and I signed it, and that was my first trail map image.
See, you didn't sign it just in case they're like, oh, this isn't up to snuff. You're like, it was him.
I don't know why I didn't sign it. I don't know if I don't know why.
Not quite confident enough yet. It's your first one, right? So maybe that little bit of fear or something.
Not confident in those days. No.
So,
in fact, I remember a time that I was walking down a hallway in behind the client, and it was Vail personnel, and he said, "Well, I hear you're the new." How did he word it? Anyway, he said, "I hear you're the new trail map guy." And I actually looked around my shoulder to see where the guy was. I mean,
who me?
I found myself in a spot where I was unfamiliar with, and it was a good spot.
So did you know, like, right away, like, oh, cool, I got a little bit of work, was it just kind of like that thought, like, oh, I got a bit of work, this is kind of fun and interesting? Or was it like, when you did that first one at Winter Park, was it like the passion, did it hit you like, oh, I want to do more of these, I need to do more of these?
Oh, I had a passion for scenery before then. You have to understand, I wasn't a skier. I was an artist, and am an artist, I should say. And so my passion was scenery, not necessarily skiing. But I learned on the job. I could ski, and I got to be an intermediate skier that skied with some fear on intermediate slopes. I'm not trying to find the out of bounds or anything. I stay on those nice groomed trails.
So I'd like to know kind of some of your history. Like, where are you from originally?
Well, originally I'm from Loma, Colorado, which is outside of Fruita, which is near Grand Junction, Colorado. It's on the western slope, just west of the Continental Divide.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up in canyon lands and mountains and high plains. So it's very diverse, and and I started painting scenery in my teens, and just really got into it. You know, I was in wonderful scenery, and all of it was something that I wanted to get down on paper.
God's country, right? So did you ever like branch off into like photography or anything like that as well?
Well, in my early career, I worked for an aftermarket automotive company, and they manufactured tachometers and gauges and different things. And so in there, I did a lot of drawing of instruments, and also I learned how to be a printer, and ran a print shop for a while. So I knew a lot of the background of what was necessary to produce a good image, and what was needed to bring out the contrast and everything. In those days, they didn't have a computer, you know, so you had to kind of know what the cameras are going to do to what your colors would end up after they were printed, and so I knew that fairly well, and it did help me early on. If you look back at some of my paintings, the early ones were painted differently than I paint them today. You know, just the colors, the color palette, and so forth, and the contrasts. So today you can do so much more with a computer and control your colors and your contrast and your even the features. You can change the features and pretty much whatever you want to do. But I still feel that today the best way to illustrate a ski area is by hand painting it. You just get more of the feel of nature. You get more of the ambience of the ski slopes and the light on the slopes and so forth. I'm not cloning trees and putting them here and there. You know, I'm individually painting each tree. So it's a lot more natural.
That's fascinating. So have you like, with the transition from the traditional way to the new way with the computers and all that sort of thing, have you, I guess, lost any work, or have you found that people are like, hey, you know, we're going to do it this way? Or have they asked you, can you render it through the computer? Like, have you done work like that?
I haven't. No, I have not rendered with a computer. I could never come up with a good reason to do that. It'd take me longer to do it on the computer than to do it by hand, I think.
Right? You got to learn how to work the dang thing first.
Freedom. I'd have much more freedom without that computer there. So the computer aids me a great deal in maybe, once it's scanned and put in the file is in my computer, then I can come back and I can go in and change a few colors or touch up things, you know.
Yeah.
And the computer's done a great thing in just the moving the job along, you know, from start to finish. Your communication with the client is much improved.
It's easier to send them a proof via email rather than hey, come over to my house next week, right?
Yeah, well, right in the very beginning, I would make blueprints. The sketches are done to size, and in those days, the reason was because I would need to blueprint it and send it out to the client, mail, and they would look at it, they would mark on it what they wanted to change, and then they'd send it back to me, and then I would take that sketch and transfer the image directly to the drawing board, and so that's why my sketches were so large in those days, and I continue to produce large sketches for approvals.
All right. So you mentioned start to finish. So I'd love to know kind of what the process is from start to finish. If you can, even if it takes like 10, 15 minutes, explain this for me. So say I have just figured out some sort of device that the entire world needs. It's a brand new invention. And I'm all of a sudden the world's richest man. And to indulge my ego and my needs and wants, I go and buy myself a mountain. And I'm going to have this mountain, basically I'm going to have the foresters come through and cut ski runs, and I'm going to create the Low Pressure Podcast Mountain, or Mark Warner's Mountain. But I need a trail map, right? It's going to be free for all. It'll be like everyone's going to be allowed to come whenever they want. It's going to be the biggest one ever. It's the best place you've ever seen. So, and I need a ski map done. So I call up Jim. Hey, Jim, I got a project for you. What happens next? What happens next? Well, hey, you got to dream big, man. You got to dream big.
Well, of course, what I would do, and my process has always been this way from the very first day, is to review it with the client and then come up with a quote so he knows what he's paying for it. And then I would supply him with some thumbnails to let him know what I'm thinking about without giving away too much.
And thumbnails being like little small paintings or small versions of the bigger.
And just outline sketches so that he can get an idea of what direction I'm looking at it, how I'm placing the slopes, and just get a general idea of what I've got in mind.
Now, may I ask you, sorry to interrupt you there, I think a few steps back, do you have to go visit the site yourself? Because I saw you have a little video on your YouTube channel, or your little YouTube video, where you got a camera in your hand. I think you're in a helicopter in one scene. Like, is that even before you get to that point? You're like, hey, I need to go and see what I'm working with?
Well, no, I would always get a third up front before I'd ever take on a project. And once that third up front, then I'm on the clock, and I'll come out and visit. There's a lot of mountains that don't have the budgets to visit, so they would send me aerial photography that I've directed someone at one of their personnel to do. And if I visited this site, I would come up and then ski it and have a photo flight set up and thoroughly photograph it from starting at 2,000 feet above the summit and work my way down and get passes across for different perspectives, and then lower the plane to the level of the summit and get all the detail of the upper mountain. And then I would even drop the plane to mid mountain level and photograph all the lower mountain and the base. And once those photographs were taken, then I could review them with a client, and we could discuss different things, maybe some particular areas on the mountain that he wanted to show a little better than others, or maybe he has problems getting the skiers to understand where they're going. And so that'd be one of my jobs, is to clarify that through the trail map. And once I reviewed it with them, then I would go ahead and return home, sit down in the shop and go ahead and do the sketch. And it's a very detailed sketch. I show everything, even the tree shadows and all the shading and everything.
So would you go and like reference the photos as to like, all right, the sun is over here, so the shadows are going to be here. And then would you take those photos and like put them on the wall and then reference them so you know what contour this slope is and all that sort of thing? Would you like create kind of a map on the wall from the photos?
No, not really. What I would do is have a blank sheet of paper in front of me, and I would get out their old trail maps and get out topo maps and get out all the aerials that were a full view. And I would just hold the photographs in my hand and look at it and design the lift pods in the correct place and allow enough places for the runs to be put in. And then I would start referring to the photographs and drawing in certain sections of the mountain. Because many times I'm drawing a slope that's completely out of view from the perspective that I'm painting. So I would be painting a section over here from a photograph that is shot from 130 degrees over on this side, while the view is over here. And so
that's an interesting point that I never really thought about before, because all of the trail maps, you draw them 3D, but they're basically, you're looking at a two-dimensional image, but you've got to make sure that this three-dimensional mountain is kind of displayed. So it's almost as if you're showing 270 degrees of this mountain, and then the back bowl, there's like those little inserts, I guess, right? Like, is that one of the biggest challenges, is trying to show everything even though it's physically not how it works?
Oh, definitely it is. And that's another reason why the computer doesn't work so well, is because you have to distort so many different perspectives to get the trails to line up like they're going to ski, so that if a skier comes and is referencing your map, nothing looks out of proportion. Everything looks natural. Everything looks right. And he isn't surprised by a stretch somewhere to put in the backside, and you mentioned 270 degrees, I painted them 360 degrees. Mount Bachelor just recently, I've shown all their slopes in one view, and they used to take 2 or 3 or 4 to do that.
Now, is that like, I can almost only imagine. Do you have like a math degree as well, or like a geometry degree, or like you get the protractor out, but you just try and, because just basically you're unfolding, right? I find that fascinating.
Well, that particular project was what I refer to as satellite views. It's basically a straight down shot. But what I do is pull in some of the forward mountain and put in a perspective that's more natural and not so straight down. Yeah. And in those scenes, I don't put in a horizon, so the skier knows that he's looking down on the mountain and not looking across horizontally like the traditional trail maps usually are.
Yeah. So you're in the airplane, you're taking all these photos. You didn't mention that the next step, you said the next step is I go home. You didn't say you get on the mountain and then ski it just to see how it flows. Is that part of it as well?
Well, I did mention that I got on the mountain and skied it, usually before I fly it.
Oh, so beforehand, yeah.
Kind of, yeah. It's if it's a complicated mountain, I want to get around the mountain and see just what I might look at from the air to clarify.
Yeah, build in a few lift tickets into the package and a few room nights, right? The whole reason I started this podcast is so I can talk about skiing and maybe get some discounts and some deals, right? Perhaps that might be the same thing. Little yes, little no.
Oh yeah, surely. But again, I was never an avid skier.
But I'm sure you like a nice fireplace and a lodge in a beautiful place with the lady, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Absolutely. Do you still now every once in a while go back to one of these resorts that you have painted in the past and say, "Hey, it's Jim, you got a spot for me?"
No, I don't.
I would. You never hurts to shoot your shot there, Jim.
But that's the difference. You're an avid skier, and I'm an avid artist.
Well, you could always say, "Hey, I feel like I'd like to do a residency for the week next week, and we'll paint you something nice for the lobby, and then hook me up with some ski passes in a few nights in the hot tub."
Well, there is one instance where I really did pursue another trip down, and that was to Turtle Island, Fiji.
Oh wow!
I got one down there, and I painted their island much like a ski resort, showing all their different amenities and so forth. And we had such a great time, Dora and I. And so it was within 6 months after that, I think, hey, I could go down and do some paintings too. and we did get another trip out of that. So yeah, that works.
What's easier, palm trees or pine trees?
Yeah, well, pine is a lot easier than palm trees to paint from above.
That's really cool too. I think I'd like to see some more of those like island, drawings, like because I've been to Fiji as well, and there's so many of those little resort islands. That would be.
Oh yeah, there is.
Is that the next transition? Is to move into the more warmer tropical climates and get invited down for Mai Tais by the beach?
No, I've always been a landscape painter, and I've always liked the American scenes, and so I'm really kind of interested now in sketches of. I guess I'd call them great American outdoor scenery, and outdoor because a lot of times there's a lot of hiking trails and so forth. In fact, if I could turn this camera around, I'll just show you one.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Let's see. How do I do this now? Yeah. Oh, here we go. That should do it. If it didn't, just a minute. I'm not a techie.
That's all right.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm just going to turn it like this.
Oh, there you go.
And there. This is Yellowstone. And, what I really am trying to do in these is it's a landscape, but I just have this tendency to map. And so I show a lot more than any other photograph would ever show you. In this particular one, you see the lower falls, and in this perspective, you could not see the upper falls, and I put it in. And also in the distance is the Grand Tetons, which you can't really see, but they are there, and that makes the whole scene very, very real in that way. And it gives the people the viewer a grand view that they can't get any other way. And then I come in and put in the hiking trails if there's hiking trails. And so I hope people can look at these and say, I was right on that trail, right there, and so and the view is magnificent. I hope it'll bring back memories. And I've painted, or I've sketched out now 12 of them, and I've got a list of 45 or 50.
Will that be for the next book?
That might be. Todd, are you there?
Yeah, so
Todd could maybe.
So joining us as well, we have Todd Bennett, who is. Why don't you tell us what you do for Jim, or what's the relationship between you guys?
Well, I think the relationship is fanboy. So a big fan of Jim's work, and the quick story for me was I kind of go on a storm chase every year, and we ended up in central Idaho, halfway between Salt Lake and Whistler, on a trip, and we're skiing at Tamarack Ski Resort in Idaho. Had never heard of it until you're kind of driving by, and figured we'd pop out and ski for a couple hours. And I was looking at the map, and lo and behold, the map looked the same as just about every map I've ever seen. And I see Jim's signature in the bottom, and I pull out my phone and look him up, and had that same kind of epiphany that you did, Mark, that there's one guy behind all of this. And so I sent out an email to Jim at his AOL account and basically said, longtime listener, first time caller kind of thing. And boy, it'd be really cool to put together a book of your life's work. And that's how Jim and I got started.
And Todd, when that was, it was tomorrow will be the
4 years.
Fourth. And
no kidding.
Email.
Wow, yeah, 4 years later, here we are. That's right. Yeah, so it must have been just after that trip. So to speed the story up a little bit, Jim and I got to know each other, and I got to know Jim and his wife, and he got to meet my family. And we said, well, let's do this book. Let's do this book thing. And we launched it on Kickstarter, hoping to get a couple hundred copies pre-sold. And we had almost 6,000 copies sold before we really even had much beyond the concept for the book. So
yeah, that was what, a year ago or so?
I think we wrapped Kickstarter I think it was October 2019. So just about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. Does that seem right, Jim? It's gotten a little fuzzy.
Yeah.
As Jim knew, I was getting in and probably getting a little over my skis on the whole project, because I'd never published a book, never written a book, never had a marketing or e-commerce business.
What's your background? Like, what do you do?
My day job, I work for Disney and our theme parks in California. So
okay, and you were just like, you know what, I'm gonna publish a book. Shoot your shot, right? Everybody's got an idea, and it's just a matter of whether you follow through it or not. That's a brilliant idea. It's one that I wish I had come up with, to be honest.
I mean, just very, very lucky. Obviously, Jim's got great material. Kickstarter ended up being much better than we thought, right? You know, we had almost $600,000 raised right out of the gate. And so we went from thinking on a really small project, a small scale, to having publishers reach out and say, hey, we would love to publish this book. And we said, great, cool. Take us through the numbers. And we go through the numbers and we're like, well, where'd all the money go? They're like, yeah, well, how about $1 a copy? And we're like, $1 a copy. We did all the work. So long story short, we ended up finding a great printer in Italy called Graphicom. We just started ordering, literally shipping containers of books. My partner, Ben Farrow, and co-founder with Open Road Ski Company, was at the press for the original printings and got to see it come off the press and bound. And then we shipped them into the U.S., set up a small Amazon store, and then helped Jim kind of rebuild his website. And so that's where we've sold it. And our 6th printing is getting loaded up in the ports in Italy right now, about to come over, and that'll take us darn close to 100,000 copies.
Holy moly. And have you sold 100,000 almost?
Right around 80,000. Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations. That is a really that's fantastic. I didn't realize it'd be that many, but nice.
Yeah, it's been fun. Yeah, I'd say, I was just going to say, and the cool thing is, Jim's painted in so many different countries. So, we've just, and with the power of what you can do with internet ads, you just target skiers in Australia, and lo and behold, skiers in Australia want his book. And so we now actually have a distribution partner in Australia where we sell on Jim's website and they ship direct in Australia, and they get it out fast. We've sold books in Japan and Mexico, and we've tested a bunch of folks. Canada is a great market. A lot of passionate skiers in Canada. We ship directly out of Ottawa, I think, is our shipping center up there. But it's been a lot of fun.
So Jim, so let's get to some of the places. Like, majority of your paintings, I'm sure, are in the United States. But how many countries have you painted like ski resorts in?
Oh, I don't think I really took account, but Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Chile, and
what about Europe? Many European destinations?
The only Europe destination was in just a second. I came. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Serbia. In Serbia.
Serbia. So is there a guy that does this is there like a European gym? Or do they do computer stuff? Like, how does it work over there?
Well, there certainly is a European artist over there, and he has his own style.
And have you met this counterpart of yours?
No, I haven't.
That would be an interesting conversation to be a fly on the wall for, I think. As long as he speaks English, or you speak Italian or something, whatever.
Well, I did have a fellow from Finland come by. He had a job in the United States and looked me up, and we had coffee and discussed trail maps. And he did a very fine job up there in his part of the country.
That's cool. So we didn't quite get finished with the process. So I've bought this mountain because I'm now the richest man in the world and I can afford this. And you've just done a couple laps in the airplane. You've done a few. You've done a few.
You're the richest man.
Pardon me?
The first thing I'll do is double my price then if you're the richest man in the
and then I'd give you a bonus on top of that because I can, right? Right? It's all about giving. It's all about giving back, Jim. So you've done a couple laps in the airplane. You've skied the terrain a little bit. You've spent a few nights by the fireplace with a nice glass of scotch or whatever you'd like. Tested the hot tub with the wife, and now you're back home with all of these photos. What's the next step?
Well, the next step is putting it together, of course, and I think I was covering some of that. But
with the sketches, yep. Mm-hmm.
So forth. And the sketch is then sent out to the client, and the client will review it. It'll come back to me, and I'll transfer that image directly onto the board that's going to be painted so that everything is exactly as approved.
How big is the board? How big are these paintings?
Usually 30 by 40 inches. A small area I'll do at a half size, but the large areas are all 30 by 40 inches. And these images will then be enlarged up to signage that goes on the mountain.
Do you keep all the originals or do you send those to the...
I do. I've got flat files here, just stacked up with them. So
really? Would you ever consider selling any of them? Like at an auction? You'd be like, all right, I'm ready to retire. The book sales were good, but I want to get up to like Mark Warner level, richest man in the world level. I'm going to sell all my maps off. Would you ever consider selling them, or is it kind of like a legacy item for yourself? Or
well, yeah, I've considered it, and we're in the process of seeing how that can be done, and because I'm going to retire, and I would like these maps to land in hands that appreciate them, and instead of just in these flat files, they don't get much exposure in these flat files.
Just gaining value. It's a retirement fund. I hope you got that insured, man.
Yeah.
Fireproof, safe.
Well, I make sure that the house is very well kept.
Yeah. Would you consider, like, I guess it would just come down to, putting a price on them, and would you offer them like maybe through an auction house, or would you just go straight to the resort and say, hey, this is the original. Is this something that you'd be interested in to display in your resort?
And it's still in discussion. Todd and Ben and I are kicking this around. So, we've got a little a plan, and we're getting it initiated, and so we'll see how it goes.
Now, so obviously you have the originals. So the original obviously is your property, but are you allowed to, so say you wanted to make prints of them, or say sell posters online. Say like I live at the base of Whistler Blackcomb, and if you were to, like, are you allowed to license them? Like, do you have that permission if you just wanted to scan them? And so, like the poster behind me, I got in France, it's a traditional poster size. If I could buy a Whistler trail map, which, to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever seen a poster with like the map of that mountain. Would you be able to do that based on the agreements that you have with these mountains?
I do have that agreement. I own the copyright, and I license the use to them for that image, and then they can put on their copy, their logos, whatever they want to, and they can copyright that with the image.
Excellent. So that might be the next step there, Todd, is the posters.
No, we're already doing them.
Yes.
On site.
Do you have any that are ready to go at the moment?
Yeah, we've got about 100 images for sale on jamesnewhughes.com. You can get them in 4 different sizes. We've got framing options, and the sketch series that Jim was talking about, we're going to roll that out this spring, summer, and fall, and we'll kind of see what the response is. And you talked about another book, or how do we kind of get broader? And the great thing about the running his own site and driving a lot of traffic there is, the customers will tell us what they're looking for.
Oh, absolutely.
Jackson is one of our top selling prints. Whistler is another top selling art print. So you get a really good sense of what people want. And Whistler's a beautiful image. We'll get you one, Mark. Happy to send one your way.
Yes, please. So I know specifically, with, we'll get back to the process soon. We're about halfway. But like for instance, for Whistler, I've been here 20 years and I've seen a lot of changes. A lot of chairlifts come in, chairlifts are taken out. They got rid of the wizard and the solar coaster chair, which to the chagrin of most people who live here, which is a terrible idea, terrible idea. But they put in a gondola. So, things move. The mountain moves around, trees get cut down, new lifts get put in. Now, do these ski companies come back to you and say, hey, we've adjusted how the mountain is. Can you fix this? Or would you have to go and do a whole new map? Because when you go to the computer, right, you can easily take things out and just adjust based on the changes. But when you do it by hand, do you have to paint a whole new map?
No, I do not. I just got through adding on to Lake Louise, Canada, a whole new front side, the northern half, which opened up I think it's the North Bowl up there. And so I would just take and lift the paint off. That's why I use watercolor. So I lift the paint off by wetting it and just removing that and repaint that area.
Off of the original?
Right.
Really? Or
if it's a case where there's some added on, I will take and paint that portion and then merge it on in the files, in the computer files.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like it might be easier. I don't know much about paint or or pretty much the majority of paintings that I know are Bob Ross sort of things.
All right. Yeah.
Happy Little Trees. Have you met him?
No, I haven't met
him.
No.
Happy Little Trees. And you paint a lot of trees. So another thing that I think about when I see like trail maps and things like that and the detail and the thousands, millions of trees you've probably painted is the Where's Waldo books. Have you ever considered doing a fun little kind of Where's Waldo style map with a few fun little things painted in? Or have you ever done a map and just painted something in without telling anybody that it's just for you? There's like maybe a little Sasquatch in the trees or something, or like, you know what I mean? Do you put little Easter eggs in your paintings?
No, I don't. I keep it very serious. I keep it very map-like. The only thing that I do remember doing was adding a few palm trees in a ski area at the request of the people at the ski area.
Oh, which one? Or do I have to go through the book and find it?
No, it was Purgatory, Colorado, and I don't know if they still have it or not, but they would have these little areas where they'd set up things for kids, a little run through the trees or something. So they wanted a little palm tree wherever this was.
I like it. I want if someone's listening to this and you're gonna commission a painting from Jim, just put like a little Sasquatch, or maybe even like a little low pressure podcast desk somewhere in the forest.
Yeah.
Now, Jim, you do kind of hide your name though, and you got to hunt around a little bit to find your signature. You often kind of put those in the trees in a little bit in that fashion.
Well, I try to put it in a spot that the client will not put a block of copy over it. But I just try to pick a spot that I think will be good in its reproduction as it goes through the steps of trail maps and brochures. So
you're not. So yeah, some people might think you're trying to hide it, but you're just doing it so it doesn't get covered up. I love it. How are you? So you don't do a lot of interviews and things. I've kind of got the gist or the vibe that, maybe a little uncomfortable talking about your art or talking about yourself or discussing that sort of thing. You like quite humble human being. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I think it is. And I think also with my age, I am not as sharp as I used to be. And so I don't always come up with what I want to say. at the time that I want to say it. But it's I've always had a real fear of the camera, and I hate these Zoom meetings.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you doing this one with me.
But I've learned in the last couple of years, and since the book's come out, it's kind of put me out.
Put out of your comfort zone a little bit.
But that's fine.
You should, Mark. You would have liked seeing him. We went to the Boston ski show. Gosh, I guess that was a year and a half ago now. Went out there in the fall and late fall, and it was a pretty neat experience. The night, I guess it was the night before the event really kicked up. Jim and I would walk around to different booths, and we'd start looking at, I don't know, Jay Peak's map, and a couple of folks come over, and I'd say, boy, you guys got a nice trail map, and they'd be pretty proud. And I was like, he drew it. And then they'd be like, wait, are you Jim? Are you the guy? And then so like all of a sudden, like people are getting their picture with Jim, and it was really neat. It was cool to see, Jim, who's obviously been such a, an icon in kind of working behind the scenes in the ski industry for so many years. It's been fun to see him get a little of the accolades, including, getting into the U.S. Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame and the Colorado Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame for, his lifelong work. That's been, as a fan, as I said, I'm a fanboy. It's been cool to see Jim get those accolades.
Yeah, because you don't seem like the kind of guy that's going to go out and get them yourself. So maybe Todd was a good addition to the team to kind of direct that the well-deserved attention to you. And to be honest with you, like, I've seen all the trail maps, and I was always like, oh, they all look the same. And I'm sure I'd seen your name, but I'd never put two and two together until I actually saw the Kickstarter about the book. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, definitely that makes sense. Like, absolutely that makes sense. So thank you for putting that together, because like I said, I'm a fan, and it's neat because you're that celebrity or that icon that nobody knows about. No one knows anything about.
Well, I want to thank you and all the skiers out there, because you made me. I had to do it for you guys.
Well, we wouldn't have known where we were going if it wasn't for you, so maybe we wouldn't have been skiing anyways, man. Like, what's the most interesting way that you've seen one of your maps portrayed? Like where? Like on something or put somewhere?
Well, I've seen them on briefs and shower curtains and
briefs as in like undies.
Yeah. Hey, you don't have a pair?
No. Are they going to be for sale on the website soon?
I don't think so.
What mountain would you put on those? You should though. You could do sell those to like the resorts or the bathing suits, right?
Well, what it is the resorts will go out and they'll get their maps put on something like that. Somebody will approach them and they'll give them the okay, and and suddenly there's some briefs out there.
So say I personally was like, all right, it's cold out. I want to get my dog a dog coat, and I want to put Grouse Mountain or Whistler Blackcomb or whatever on that coat. Would I have to go to Whistler Blackcomb and say, hey, or do I have to go to you because you hold the rights to license that out?
Well, you'd have to go to the ski area if you wanted the trail map with the names on it and everything. Mm-hmm. If you just wanted the image without all the trail names and different symbols, well, I suppose you'd come to me.
That's interesting. The separation. So like the art is yours, but right. Then once they put the names on the runs and stuff, it becomes their property or so to speak.
Right, that's a residual copyright.
Oh, okay, interesting. So, you're back in the studio.
Yep.
You've got the blueprint on the wall, and that's the stage. Big, 30 by 40. You said. How long does it take for you to paint one of these resorts?
Well, a ski area like Blackcomb, Whistler is going to take me 3 to 4 weeks to actually paint it.
And is that you just putting in like a work day, like 8 hours a day sort of thing?
Oh, yeah, or more. Yeah. Yeah, it takes a lot of time to paint those trees. Now, I do really love to do New Zealand ski areas.
With no trees? Yeah, no trees. It's all in the Alpine. Have you ever been to New Zealand? Did you go?
Yeah. Been to New Zealand once and Australia twice, and took my wife both times, and we had a lovely time.
Isn't it lovely? I'm a big fan of New Zealand ski areas. And every tree is the same. Hey, it's not like if you do every single tree by hand. It's not like you have a stamp or anything. It's just one after the other. How many trees do you figure you've painted in your lifetime?
Oh my gosh, and I countless. I suppose maybe you could get a forester to estimate how many trees there are in this square mile that you're doing or something, and then maybe you could work out a system to count all of them and all the paintings. But I have no interest in doing that.
No, I don't either. So you say, like, you put in a full day, like 3 to 4 weeks. Like, do you have a specific routine? Like, do you get up and take your time in the morning, and do you paint during the day? Or are you more of a nighttime painter guy? Like, what's your process like in a day of like getting into the studio? Yeah,
well, in the early years, it was up at dawn, and I'd just go down and get started, and it'd just be like a day at work. I mean, I was devoted to it, and there other distractions. Occasionally, sure, I'd have other distractions working out of the studio at home, but pretty much a normal work day, and longer in most cases. Weekend too.
Hey, Jim, tell them the story about the when you were really doing a lot of maps, and you were, and Jim, you paint the shadow, and then you paint the light side of the tree and the dark side of the tree. So Mark, he's not just painting the tree once, he's painting it 3 times every tree he's done. Talk about how you supported your arm.
I was about to ask,
map making years.
Thanks for bringing that up, because I was about to ask.
I hold this arm up like this so much, and I'd been painting so long that I really started aching, and then the arm was, I was losing it. So I hooked in the ceiling a hook and put a sling down, and it was just right to just put my arm right in there to see. So I had my sling there, and I could paint, and so.
So you created a brace with, like, basically supporting your elbow. See.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any, like, carpal tunnel issues or anything like that with the painting?
No, my hands are getting to the point that arthritis is starting to set in a little bit. I have a trigger finger, and but nothing like carpal tunnel or anything like that.
Well, that's nice. And then, so another question I had too is, like, you said that. I'm sorry. What was your mentor's name again?
Bill Brown.
Yeah, Bill Brown. So as I said, a friend of mine said, "Oh, I've met this guy, Bill Brown, who did Sun Peaks here near here in Kamloops." Now, are you the last of, like, a dying breed, or do you have a protege, or have you talked to someone, or are you looking, or have people reached out to you to say, "Hey, is there someone that is going to follow in the lineage of trail map painters?"
Yeah, I think so. Brad Smith is out of Bozeman, Montana, had looked me up and wanted to know if I would mind helping him a little bit getting into painting them by hand. He had been doing them by computer before, and his image was probably the best that I'd seen done by computer. So I was very glad to help him along. It was at a stage of my career where I was winding down, and happy to have somebody that was interested in it to carry it forward. So and he's doing quite well, really. I think whenever I met Bill Brown, I was trying to do everything just like Bill Brown did it. And Bill said to me, he says, "Look, you got to find your own style and work your own style. And so that really freed me up a lot. And that's the same case with Rad. His style is different than mine, and it doesn't mean that it's better or not as good. It's a unique style, and he's got a very pleasing image that he's working on. So I'm quite excited in what he's doing.
Are you guys competing for work yet?
I'm pretty much turning everything over to him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I am.
Just the extra, the extras. And does that disappoint? Does that disappoint anybody who's like, oh, sweet, we're gonna get Jim to do our map, and you're like, I don't have time, so I'm gonna give it to this kid. Does that disappoint anybody, or have you had any feedback on that?
I haven't had any real feedback on that. Rad has a very good site, and he has some very nice samples, and you know he can. I don't expect him to fill my shoes because I didn't try to fill Bill Brown's shoes. We just are individual artists that have a style, and we move on.
So the craft is literally in good hands then.
Yeah, I think so. I hope that the resorts, and I think the book helps this. I think the book helps the resorts realize that the image is important. People do relate to these images. That's why the book is so popular, is because of what I've painted is attractive, and people like to see this image. This image represents their mountain. It represents their slopes, represents their resort. And why have a poor image out there that is being exposed thousands of times a day? You know, you should have a good image, and that's what I really strive to do.
That's awesome. I love the idea. Like, the appeal to me personally is being able to see all of those resorts in one place, right? You've seen all of them. There's really nowhere you can go, not even a website where you can see them all one after another, side by side. Whereas when you have this book, you're like, oh, what is Breckenridge like? Oh, what's Alta like? Oh, I've never skied Big Sky. Oh, that's cool. Look at this. You know, like, I'm going to spend a lot of time.
Well, that's another reason why the book is so good, is because it's a dream book. It's a book that you look at and you dream about your next trip.
Exactly. Is there any are there any that you haven't done that you want to do? Like, is there a desires list for yourself?
Yeah, there is. I mean, I wish that I had done some that escaped me, you know. But now at this stage of my life, I'm pretty much satisfied with what I've done, and you know, ready to turn it over. There may be a few more.
Yeah, I hope so. So, Todd, what's next in the plans for James Nehu's empire?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about the sketches that Jim has done. It was, you know, a conversation that Jim and I had maybe 6 months ago or maybe a year ago, and as Jim mentioned in his process, his sketches are so detailed and so incredible, and even, you know, his final art is almost photorealistic. So you got to get pretty close to it to realize it's not a photo. So the sketches are very clearly, you know, much more clear even from a distance that they're by hand. And so Jim and I just started talking about, you know, what would it be like to have the great American landscapes? Like, what would it be to have Yellowstone and Yosemite and all these other places similar to the ski areas that people just connect with? You know, and I think that's pretty fun. And Jim, you know, with the Wind River Range in Wyoming, the Grand Tetons. I mean, there's just so many beautiful landscapes out there. It's been fun to kind of see Jim build that out. And he's always kind enough to ask me for my opinion and lets me, you know, put a couple ideas here and there. And we got a great relationship where he's like, yep, I love that idea. Or nope, I think I like it just the way it is. And that's been, for me, as someone who appreciates design and a lot of craft, it's been just fun, very fulfilling to be kind of a part of that as these next set of images come out.
That's cool. Hey, Jim, do you have a specific, do you have like a set of artists, like inspirations for yourself? Do you have like favorite artists or favorite painters that really speak to you? Like, you know, inspirations for yourself?
Well, I've reviewed a lot of different artists and their work and admire it. I didn't really study art, and I think because of that, I've just kind of come up with my own style and I've just kind of been on my own. I mean, trail maps are certainly different than what you would see from a famous landscape artist, and so you're kind of carving your own road. But like getting back to these sketches and I can remember, I've been in so many places and I got so many photographs, and I've got all these photographs on my computer that I want to get back in and paint. And just beautiful places and tremendous. And I'd stop in an area and say, "Wow, I want to paint this." So I'll photograph it, and I'll have 100 different photographs of this one place, including photographing down to the bushes or the trees or just a group of rocks or something that I would incorporate into it. And they're all on my computer, and I'll never get to them because I don't have enough time. I'm 75. And there's just no way I'm going to paint all these scenes before my time's up. So I think that's why I'm really getting into these sketches, because I can sketch it faster than I can paint it. And I've been inspired with the fact that Ansel Adams, a famous black and white photographer, his stuff is still very important and very accomplished, and people really enjoy his work. And so I'm thinking, all right, I at least can capture these different scenes that I have in my mind of how I'm going to show them in black and white and get most of them that I want to get done.
It's interesting that you mentioned him, because that's who I had in mind when I said, hey, do you have inspirations? Because everyone knows, if they know who Ansel Adams was, he's that black and white American landscape photographer. Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of really fascinating parallels there as well. So to round out the process talk, so once you've got your painting finished, do you then have to go and take it to a specific shop and get it scanned in a certain way? What's the step once you've got it on the wall and it's finished and you've signed your name and you're ready to go? What are the next kind of steps that way?
Well, it is to take it down to a photo lab and get a scan done. Nowadays, I get 100 meg capture, they call it. And the detail in it is more than I used to be able to get with a 8x10 transparency, and then scan that at 300 megs. And so I'll get the 100 meg, and then I'll enlarge that up to 300 megs so that it'll go on up to mountain signage. And of course, I'll go in there and work with the color a little bit, touch up some different areas and so forth. And then once that's done, I upload it to Dropbox and let the client download it from there.
Have you ever had any disasters where something just, transporting it or looking at, or for some reason you pick up the wrong folder of the wrong pictures and you do, half of one mountain and half of another mountain and realize, oh no, these are photos from two different mountains, or when you're transferring the photo to the photo lab and maybe drop it in a puddle or something like that. Have you ever had any disastrous moments?
Well, I have had a case where originally the first 50 that I did, I was afraid my house would burn down or something and I'd lose all these paintings. And so I would send them back to the clients. And so I found out that they're sitting in behind desk. One had a water damage to it, just sitting back there. And so and then they would get lost, or they would end up in somebody's home and not be used by the mountain anyway. So that's whenever I started keeping them in my files and not allowing them to get out. But there was another case where I got the direction of the sun wrong. And I was working from photographs sent into the ski area on a cloudy day, and I couldn't see shadows. And today, I would go in on Google Earth, and I could know immediately how that mountain faces, which direction, and so forth. But back in 1988 or 1990, that source wasn't available, and it's a small area. And so I did my sketch. I sent it to him, and he approved it. And it had the shadows in it. But whenever it was painted, he realized, oh, something's wrong. Those shadows aren't right. I got the sun coming from the north instead of from the south. And so, yeah, I had to go in and repaint that. So
I was going to ask, did that one get published, and is it in the book?
No.
Do you still have that original painting just kicking around?
No, that was one that was sent back.
Oh, you didn't keep it. It's like you want a baseball card gets printed with a funny blemish, and that's the one that's worth the most.
Yeah, right. Well, I hope there aren't any of those prints around. Well, there wouldn't be because I caught it before it went to press. So
fair enough. So I'm going to ask Todd, where can people? Everyone listening to this podcast should have this book. So what's the title of the book? Where can they get it? How much is it? Let's hear the details, please.
Yeah, sure. The title is Legend. The Man Behind the Maps, legendary ski artist James Niehues. So pretty fitting title, pretty self-explanatory. Book is available on Jim's website, jamesniehues.com. And that you can order it from in Canada or in the US and several other countries around the world. And then we also have Amazon set up in here in the US. So just two places. A couple of gift shops around have reached out, and we've done small batch orders for wholesalers, but predominantly all direct to the consumer.
Awesome. And that works out better for you guys.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of a hustle, though. I'll say we learned the hard way.
But I'm sure you're getting more than $1 a book.
Indeed. Yep. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Now I have to ask you, are you guys willing for us to do a little raffle so someone can win one of your books through the Low Pressure Podcast? We'd love to give away one of your books if you're willing.
Of course. Happy to do that. Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Absolutely. So if you're listening to this, in the intro or the outro, we'll talk after, and we'll figure out the best way to do it, that we can drive some eyeballs to your site, because people need to know. Because once they get a look at this, they're going to want one for themselves. So, have a listen to if we're at the end of this episode. So at the end, I'll rehash it. At the beginning, I would have talked about it. And we'll see if we can get someone a book. Todd, thanks for coming. Jim, it was an honor.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be there.
As soon as I found out,
at Low Pressure, I got to tell you, we got a big one coming in this weekend.
Oh yeah, are you going to get out?
No, I won't get out. I don't get on the mountain anymore.
Not even? Oh, really?
No. I was last time I was up. I had quite a time getting off. I'm an artist. I sit behind this board and I paint all day, and I don't have the control that I used to have. So,
well, that's fair. But I love how you're enthusiastic and excited for everybody else. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think it's great. It's beautiful. Yeah, I loved it all the time whenever I was up there, because the scenery is great. The just getting out in the wild and being amongst the great outdoors. It's just wonderful. Yeah,
I agree. And thank you for doing your part in bringing the great outdoors to the great indoors. Straight to the coffee table book. So thank you once again. It was a pleasure. And everybody listening, go check out Jim Niehues, and check out his Instagram account too, actually. Whoever runs that does a great job. It's one of my favorite posts, because I'll go through and I'm like, oh, you keep posting up little different mountains. Which one is this mountain? And everybody starts chiming in. Is it this? Is it that? So it's The Instagram account is a fun one to follow too, so make sure you go do that.
Very good. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, gentlemen. I appreciate your time, and it was great to meet you. Hey, well, thank you very much, James and Todd. I appreciate you coming on the show, and I, for one, cannot wait to get my hands on a copy of that book. I will be wasting so much time looking at my home mountain, comparing all the other mountains. I'm really excited. And for you LPP listeners, if you'd like to win a copy of the book, The Man Behind the Maps, courtesy of James and Todd, go to the Low Pressure Podcast website, the contest page, and fill out the form and enter for your chance to win. We will also have the link on our Instagram bio. So go do that now if you haven't, because you could have one of the raddest books ever sitting on your coffee table. And you better believe that while I'm doing that, I'm going to be sipping on a nice frosty ice cold Fat Tire Amber Ale while I daydream about ski resorts I haven't been to. And so thanks to Fat Tire and to CMH Heli Skiing and Heli Hiking. If you didn't know, maybe you do now, but they have an amazing summer program. That's right, you can go and stay in the same lodges that they have heli skiing, live a little luxury out in the mountains, and they've got a lot of really cool programs for the summer for their summer product, which includes painting, some photography. You learn about biomimicry in nature, as well as some alpine trail running. Can't really go wrong, man. And they've got those really rad Via Ferratas too. If you listened to my stories from a couple years ago when I went, you should check it out. CMHheli.com. Thanks everybody for listening. We've got another great episode coming up. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers. This has been a Redmark Media production.